Pulling the Trigger is brought to you by Easy Vape North Shore, the industry's leading direct retailer of the highest quality personal vaporizers, e-cigs, vapes, and Canadian-made e-juice. Located at 987 Marine Drive in North Vancouver, or you can check them out online at www.easyvapecanada.com. You can also donate to my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/MarkHughesComic. Welcome to Pulling the Trigger. I am Mark Hughes, your host, and this episode has been produced, engineered, and edited by the wonderful Taylor Murray. Thanks again, Taylor. This is the December 14th, 2017 edition. It's a couple days before that, and I'm just sitting at home getting ready to do a storytelling show. It's called The Anxiety Show, and it's about... The theme is why we hate Christmas, and boy, do I ever hate Christmas. Oh, getting messages. No, better turn that off. All right, there, back to full attention. See, now you know there's legitimacy and integrity in my podcast because I'm not editing out the shitty parts. Ferret will be joining me on bed in a moment as soon as she's done eating her chewy toy, her chewy thing. That's Chuckles. So what's going on for me? What do I want to talk about these days? Well, I'm going to Winnipeg on the weekend, December 15th to I guess it's the 18th. Here's where I'm supposed to go, oh, don't be jealous. Wow. And then when I get back, I can make jokes about Winnipeg because I live in Vancouver, so anything that's that's a smaller town is automatically worse than us, which I do not believe in. I don't know about Vancouver. I've lived here most of my life. Since 1985. I moved here when I was 5. And I do not think I've ever belonged here. I don't think I belong anywhere I go, so let's get that clear. But I'm not into most of the things that most people love about Vancouver. Most of the things I like to do are indoor activities that can be done in almost any city. I don't go to the beaches. I don't care about the mountains. I don't like hiking. I don't like yoga. I'm not into a lot of the liberal culture that is here. The only place I ever felt like I belonged in Vancouver was the downtown east side. And the prisons here. Everywhere else, I mean, I don't feel like I don't belong, but I don't necessarily feel like this is home. It's just familiar. Well, why don't you leave then? In due time, once I've pissed off enough people or some kind of controversy or tragedy hits that forces me to leave, I'll probably go. But I'm always kind of thinking about it. The guest for this episode is a guy who spent a lot of time on the downtown east side and places like that too. He's a guy I know from our support groups. His name's Billy. The episode is actually 2 parts because after the first interview, I found out that he was on the prescription heroin program, and I'd never actually met anyone who'd done it before. He's a good guy. He's just new in recovery. He's only a few months clean at this point, and he's just trying to get his life together. I had to delete out his name in the episode. After he had done the interview, he realized that some of the stuff he talked about could make, bring some embarrassment to his family and whatnot. And he has a son who's transitioning, a trans son, and his mother and etc. And he just didn't want to make it any harder. It's a stand-up guy thing to do, if you ask me. So, this is a short interview. I don't got much else to talk about this week, but let's meet Billy. So, what'd you do this weekend? Anything?
This weekend, pretty much just sat around being sick.
Okay, you're suffering from something?
Just that first winter cold that goes around, gets in your chest. Just pretty much work kind of whittled me down and had its way with me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, what did I do? Did I do comedy stuff? I did an open mic on Sunday. Then I went to one of our little support group things on Sunday as well.
Nice.
And Yeah, that's it. I can't even. I don't think anything significant happened, or it did, and I have brain damage, and I can't remember it. That wouldn't be surprising, though, right?
Just got on stage, committed social suicide like usual.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm sitting here with, and he is a guy that I know through our mutual support groups that we're not allowed to mention by name, but they're for substance abuse issues. And so as you know, I invite people on who have interesting lives or who've led interesting lives, so that you qualify definitely. So what are you doing right now? Like, where are you living? What's your situation right now?
Well, right now I'm in a second stage recovery house.
What does second stage mean?
Second stage is pretty much you're out of the bubble where they hamstring you with a ton of restrictions and are watching you like a hawk, pretty much.
So that would be like a treatment center?
Pretty much out of the treatment bubble.
Okay, so you're not like doing like group therapy or anything?
It's more just a sober living house.
Okay.
You know, you're pretty much under agreement that you make a curfew, you do a chore, and you don't use.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
And how long have you been there for?
I've been there now about 3 months.
Huh.
Yeah.
What were you doing 4 months ago?
4 months ago, I was out on the streets. I was using crystal meth and heroin or fentanyl.
Whatever it is
out there.
Right? I heard they just call it down now.
Yeah, it's just
and it's
down.
Whatever it is.
There's no heroin on the streets anymore.
That's what I had a dealer. The episode just got released today. This is November 23rd, and I had a dealer here sitting where you were sitting, and he said, "Yeah, there's no." People don't even sell it. It's like it's actually like economically like you're not doing yourself a favor trying to sell heroin anymore.
No, it's just they've made the marketplace change themselves because it's by design.
Right.
It's by design. It's scary. It's really scary out there. I overdosed I think 6 or 7 times in the month I was out there.
Really? Eh?
Yeah. Sometimes twice a day.
So when you say you're out on the streets, does that mean homeless?
Mm-hmm.
What does homeless look like to you?
Well, for me, my addiction has gotten to the point where I don't even bother trying to function as a normal person anymore. It's a 24/7, 365 full-time job of acquiring more and using, and crime, everything that goes along with it. So I pretty much just roam around wherever I am. That's where I am, and my circumstances dictate where that's going to be. It's from the alleys downtown to trap houses to
what's a trap house? That's this new language that you kids talk.
Yeah, that's just a dope house.
So like a crack house or a shooting gallery.
Crack house. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing special.
Why do they call it a trap house?
I think it's just because the rappers say that.
Oh.
They always same what they're calling the dog food now. Your mom's on the dog food.
I heard yams.
Yeah. Fuck. They've always got a way of putting shit in it,
Yeah.
Wrap it in plastic.
So anyway, when you were in the trap eating the dog food, what'd you do to support your habit?
I was a booster. I did pretty well at that, stealing
like shoplifting, right?
Shoplifting, high-end clothes, as well as break and enters.
Oh, okay. Huh. Oh, wow. Okay, a lot of information there. Now, as I told you, like, I know you. I know a lot of this stuff, so sometimes I have to interrupt you to, like, explain, because there's normal people who listen to this, right, who don't know any of this shit. Yeah. So I'll just have to interrupt you. So, and also some of the questions I have to ask you is so they can have a better understanding.
Yeah.
See, everything you just told me, I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah,
neat. Yeah, how's the coffee? That's all I care.
Call them A&Rs and B&Es.
Yeah.
They're gonna be a little
no one calls them A&Rs. Fuck. They call them ARs. Fuck. Listen to this guy. So, how old are you?
30.
30. How long have you been doing this life for?
I've been in and out of that lifestyle since I started hanging out with the wrong crowd around 13 years old.
So we'll go back just a bit. What was your home life growing up like? Like what were the circumstances, do you think, that led you into hanging around with the wrong crowd?
Well, it's nothing unique. I felt more like I didn't fit in at around the age of 11, 12 years old. I had some rougher stepdads younger, but it got good when we moved out of Surrey, and it was actually a pretty it was a really nice home. It had its problems, but then I found out that the guy I was raised to believe was my biological father wasn't, and that really created a fracture in the family, and it fueled my fire. I wasn't really dealing with it, and then anything I did after that information came out, it was just, you're doing this to blame us, you're doing this, da da da, and it just compounded the issue, and I was really going down the wrong path with the wrong people.
Right.
I was, by 12, 13, I was already drinking alcohol almost every day, smoking cigarettes full-time, smoking pot full-time, and then hanging out with people that were older than me, dealing pot and cocaine, and then I started doing some of that stuff, and then it just all went to hell.
Wow. So basically, if you're anything like me, you probably fell into that crowd because it felt like family in a certain way. You feel belonging and
For
all
sure.
that.
Yeah. It was definitely a sense of belonging, and it was cool, and it was popular, and everybody had money, or there was just always something to it.
Some prestige goes along with it, right? Yeah. So when you just for clarification, when you say wrong crowd, what was it that they were doing wrong?
Selling drugs, and there's some that were a lot older. There's some violent guys. There was guys like I know that are still doing the same lifestyle today that are pretty much, pretty sure, gang members.
Oh, wow.
You know, and that's also who I got hooked in with a little bit later once that started to develop even more.
And you say gang, I don't think you mean like the greasers from Outsiders, right?
No, it was...
hey, let's get those socias.
Yeah. No, it was a little worse than that in its own way, yeah. High stakes, you know, and... Yeah, like, the people like that I know from that lifestyle have never made it out.
Right.
You know?
Common story.
Yeah, common story.
So, 13, start hanging around the wrong people, start selling a bit of dope, start doing a bit of dope. What happened? What was the trajectory like after that?
Well, I stopped going to school pretty much as soon as, like, when I was in grade 8, I just pretty much stopped going. Just skipped school, drank with my friends, and then I started hanging out more and more with some mutual friends I had out in a different part of town that were affiliated gang members, and they were really dangerous guys, and I started to gravitate to them more and more, and I started hanging out with my other friends less and them more, and as that progressed, in that crowd, the stakes got higher and higher, and the circumstances just worse and worse. I was pretty much helping them traffic cocaine, and as well as other things that I don't really want to get into, and it was a really, I thought it was cool at the time.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool at the time.
But the movies make the hip-hop and all this shit, that's the cool thing to do.
Yeah. And I became a product of it and pushed everybody away. But things got pretty bad when the girl I was seeing, when I broke up with her because my addiction was getting so bad. And
addiction to?
Cocaine.
Right.
Cocaine and alcohol, yeah.
Snorting it still? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was doing a lot.
Right.
Even at that age, like a lot. And she killed herself a little while after we broke up. She was suffering from her own sort of stuff and family issues as well, but I don't think I helped that. And then I went completely off the chains after that.
So you and I have talked lots of times about how our lives each sort of progressed, and because for listeners, addiction is it's always referred to as a progressive illness. Now, we're going to stay out of the controversy of if it's a disease or not. I don't give a shit about that. But regardless, if you suffer from a drug addiction, it always gets worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes people years for it to get worse. You and I are similar because we had the streamlined version, right? So when did you go from what I would call like, okay, snorting coke and drinking, even if you're doing it a lot, is still sort of socially acceptable? Mm-hmm. Sort of. When did you go from that to like hardcore junkie?
That
or
happened,
crackhead or whatever your thing was.
That happened, the circumstance came with it like a little while after the timeline I was just talking about.
Your
I served a term in prison. Got out.
What was the thing in prison for?
It was for manslaughter.
Manslaughter. How long did you get for that?
66 months.
Was that a young offender?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you got out. You got out as an adult, though.
I got out. I got transferred on my 18th birthday.
You're the third person I've had on this podcast who's killed someone.
Yeah.
I gotta get new friends, man. Anyway, go on. I'm safe in here, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're good. No,
right.
he had it coming. I guess.
You might not be safe though. You got a nice smile there.
I hope you roofied this coffee.
No, sure did. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna waste it on you, fucking scumbag. Anyway, so okay, you get out after 66 months.
After 66 months, and I didn't do any other programs. I didn't do anything that they had that could help you get established when you get out, because you're like, fuck that.
What
shit.
do they?
Well, they try to John Howard you.
Right.
They try all this.
I've
shit.
only ever got out of the pen and provincial jails. No, provincial jails, they don't set you up with anything. The pen, they do try and set you up. What do they set you up for as when you get out of a young offender institution? Like the halfway house or anything like that?
I'm not sure out of there
Yeah.
because I didn't get directly out of there.
Oh, okay.
Like at 18, I got shipped to Fraser.
Right.
And from Fraser, they John Howard me and,
Right.
standard welfare check.
Right.
And
So Fraser is a provincial correctional center in Maple Ridge, and John Howard is an organization that helps inmates, and John Howard meaning like a house. So he was living in some kind of halfway house type thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So I didn't go through any of those.
Yeah.
I just got out. I had a little bit of money that I was given. And I pretty much wound up kind of cruising around for I think about a month, and then ran into a buddy, and he wanted to help in establishing a house in Burnaby selling drugs. And of course, I was all into that.
Not $5 joints.
No,
right?
No,
okay.
not school joints.
Yeah.
And things went really crazy from the beginning. It was a party house. We always had somebody in it. It was a nightmare. And I began getting right back into the cocaine, and as much as I could sell or make money on whatever it was, I was doing just as much. I would sell it to the person and then do half of it.
Right.
As you do. Or, cutting down the dope, whatever it was.
So you're starting to be a bit skeezy.
Yeah,
now,
it got pretty bad. But I was with a girl, and she was kind of the glue that kept me together and kept me, like trying to sleep at night.
Was she an addict too?
No. Well, she identified as somebody that struggled with that, but as far as the criteria goes that I base somebody upon, no.
Right.
She
was able to go to bed at the end of the night.
Problem user, I would say.
Right.
And during that time, she got pregnant, and that's when I first attempted to get clean.
How'd you do that?
Pretty much just sheer willpower.
Oh, just I'm not going to use.
Yeah.
No rehab, no counseling.
Yeah.
Just Okay.
Tried to go legit.
Right.
We moved out of there. That ended really poorly. I was like, pretty much all my friends are wanting to kick my head in. They were no longer my friends. I probably ripped half of them off or.
It's not glamorous anymore.
No, it
right?
was not glamorous. I couldn't hold it together. I was doing about an ounce of cocaine every 2 to 3 nights.
So you're pretty well doing it all day.
All day.
And staying up for 2 days at a time.
And hiding it from her, and she was, just pretending that I wasn't. But I'm so messed up on the other stuff we're taking that who knows, right? And began doing it in other ways because I could no longer get it up my nose. So it's progressing on that point. And we got out of there, and I got my first legitimate jobs and all this sort of stuff, and I was lost. But I really didn't want to let her down because I did love her very much, and I did care about her and having, a safe place for her and the baby. But
That's your child?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a struggle. It was an absolute struggle.
Trying to be legit and have a family, but you're still doing drugs?
Or no, I stopped doing the drugs, but I couldn't stop doing the crime.
Right.
The crime is, I was still doing some things because I'd even lie saying I was going to work, and really, we're going and doing something else.
Right. Can you tell me what type of crimes you were doing?
I would be doing pretty much taking down houses, pretty much like robbing houses. break and enters to robbing dealers to robbing mobile dealers, stores.
So not selling insurance.
No,
okay.
We're not selling insurance or
mutual
Avon.
funds, yeah.
No Avon lady calling.
Right.
It was pretty ugly. She knew what was going on, I think, to an extent. But I was trying to mask it for sure.
Yeah. And then, so it keeps progress. So that's your first attempt ever at getting clean.
Yeah.
When did you relapse?
It was about a year and a half, 2 years into that.
Oh, you stayed clean for a while, eh?
I stayed clean for a while.
On sheer willpower.
But I was still, I don't want to call it 100% abstinence because I was smoking weed.
Right.
And I was on methadone at the start of that.
Right.
Because I was so gripped to other substances. And it ended very badly. It ended in a police situation with my neighbor. And it's really blurry, but I don't want to get into that because the court went differently than it could have been interpreted,
right? Or
that I would interpret it, and plus I'm not completely sure of recalling the whole timeline at the point.
Done some damage to your head, and some substance
really,
use.
There's some blurry spots for sure.
So and I don't need specifics. I'm just where I'm coming from, just for the people listening, is like I'm curious to hear when it went, like, because it still sounds to a certain degree, as fucked as it is, you're paying rent.
Yeah.
You're sort of normal, even if you're a criminal. I'm curious when it was, like, not normal at all anymore.
Right after this.
Okay, gotcha.
Right after this. I got out.
I just gotta take a piss. Keep talking.
Yeah. I got out of North Fraser, and I was only in a little bit, but I get out to an eviction notice hanging on my door. Nowhere to go. I got no money. I'm completely lost, and for the first time, I didn't really care, because I really had given up at that point, and I ended up leaving and going and staying in a basement suite with this guy I barely knew.
Right.
And that only lasted a little while because I couldn't hold it together anymore.
Were you still using?
I was still using.
What were you using?
We're cocaine.
Right.
I was chipping on some heroin, and I was drinking heavily drinking. And I started having to steal from the liquor store at this point. I had to start stealing to get from stores and stuff to get more cocaine. I didn't really have anybody to turn to that I wanted to. The people I grew up with that I was referring to that were gang members had just gotten locked up, so that source of income really dried up because
now you're starting to be on your own totally.
I'm completely on my own.
And family is, are you talking to them? Or?
No, it's very sporadic, I believe, at this point.
Right.
They're trying, but I'm so unreachable at this point. I'm so in such a dark place. It was horrible.
Right.
Like when I left the apartment and moved to that basement suite, I had knocked out all the walls. Like I remember punching the walls out, throwing the phone at the wall, breaking the TV. I left an entire apartment full of stuff. I moved out with a hockey bag, and I remember the lady who helped me move popping an Ativan in my mouth because I'm freaking out. And I'm losing my bearings, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go do something so I can go back to prison. I'm really lost, and I want to kill myself. My kid's gone, and I'm this pathetic mess. And moved to the basement suite. That doesn't last, and I ended up downtown. First time ever. Downtown Hastings, and not by my own volition. Like, I'd been down there, sold dope, put in shifts, this, that, whatever, right? But this is the first time I'm down there with no means to get out.
East Van stranded.
Yeah. And it wasn't scary. That was the thing. It was like, I don't have to leave. It was like, I can do this.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're not. There's no appearance you got to keep up. There's no can't let anyone know I'm shooting dope or any of that. It's like as long as I keep high, none of this matters.
And this is still the days. I think Facebook was just coming out at this point.
Oh.
This is right when Facebook had first. So you can still duck everything. There's no.
Yeah.
He hasn't logged into Messenger in a week. What the hell, right? Like you can kind of coast flip phones and this and that. So you can. I could just hide out. I really pretty much just hid out down there, cruised the shelters. I ended up in like the Covenant House and all these places, Salvation Armies, detoxes.
So you're out and out homeless.
I was out and out homeless.
Yeah. And doing cocaine, heroin.
Were
you smoking crack or?
At this point it had turned into a crack addiction.
Yeah.
I was shooting cocaine mainly, but
Good man.
when I would come into it, I would smoke crack.
Right.
But I didn't enjoy it like I did shooting coke.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That could be a whole episode talking about just shooting coke. I have to take a shit already.
Yeah, and it was completely out of hand. It was like, and it wasn't like when it started, when it was you think it's like a rap music video. No, it's like $20 to $20. Welfare check or
too fucked up to even do crime.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I was still doing some, but
nothing sophisticated.
Sophisticated, and it was there was some pretty pathetic shit in there.
Yeah.
Getting caught. Getting caught all the time shoplifting from the Bay, and I remember them giving me the option because I get caught so much that they would give me the option of like punching me out or calling the cops.
Right.
And I would usually take the assault.
Take the punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
That means
because
you
I can get on to the next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember telling the police officer, like, can you hurry up with my promise to appear so I can make it to Sears before they fucking close?
Right.
Like, I got shit to do.
Yeah.
And I was dead serious. I was dead serious, and I was dead set, and I didn't see a way out, and I probably didn't want to for a long time. I didn't feel capable of it. I didn't feel worthy of it.
And with each action and each day and each thing where you're degrading yourself or we're degrading ourselves, it's compounding it and getting worse, and it's like it's like it's a tired cliche, but you're digging a hole, right? But it's digging and it's further and further down, and it's it's harder and harder to see a way out, and any notion of a normal life gone.
I'd given up. Like, for me, I remember there was a point in my addiction, and it was right around when the mother of my kid left. And I remember this is a huge turning point in my addiction because I just relapsed. And she's crying, baby's crying in her arms, and she just says to me, I just want the old back. And I looked at her dead in the eyes, and I was dead serious. I said, he's fucking gone. He's dead. You're not getting him back. This is how it is, and this is how it's going to go. And I truly believed that. And I didn't know that there was any actual help out there.
Had you ever heard of rehab or meetings yet? Okay.
I had, because they would come in. It was pretty sporadic when they would come in, but they would come into the youth detention center.
Right.
But it was sporadic and nobody would go, and you couldn't
I remember
go.
That. Yeah.
You couldn't go. Couldn't go to school. Couldn't go to programs. Couldn't do this. Because if you went, especially on the unit I was on, Unit 4, like, you're a goof, and it's just this stigma, and you're like, well, and you can't apply, you can't do nothing. You can't do their programs, and so I'd heard of it, and I stepped in the room once. I remember the guy trying to talk to me, and I bailed instantly. I didn't.
Had you not? So at this point in time, you're in and out of the shelters and all that. Have you actually tried formal rehab yet? No. Okay.
No. The first time I tried formal rehab was right along this string of addiction, or this run that was really long.
You're in and out of jail at this point too, right?
Yeah. But it's mostly just like weekends and a month here, like nothing. Right, like a lot of times not even getting sentenced and moved to
rubby bits.
Yeah,
right?
just harsh rubby bits. Yeah,
a rubby bit is slang for a small sentence, and it comes from the term rubby for people who drink rubbing alcohol, because they would go to jail just to get off the streets for a little bit.
Yeah, I like that term.
Yeah, rubby bit. I haven't said that term in probably 7 or 8 years. You're
the
bringing
best.
it out
I
in
bring
me.
the best
You're
out of
a
you.
fucking fuck. Anyway, so go on.
So I'm stringing along this way, and I finally get caught. What was it? It was a couple robberies, I believe, and I think it was robberies. And this is right before, and my lawyer knew that they were just about to change the protocol on getting CSOs for robberies.
CSO is a
Conditional sentence order.
Conditional sentence order, and that means it's like doing a jail sentence in the community. So it's sort of like probation, but it's way more strict. And if you blow it, you serve the rest of the sentence in jail.
Yeah. And it's still day for day. You don't even get time credited for the time you spent.
It's a last chance before prison sentence.
And it was the deal was 4 years of the pen or a 3-year CSO.
Right.
So I don't know how that math works, but I'm like, I think I'll take the conditional sentence order.
Right.
They sent me to the Burnaby Center because I was diagnosed in my time while I was cruising the shelters, and I was working with a psychiatrist at Covenant House. I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, severe depression, and severe anxiety.
Right. So Burnaby Center for Mental Health, which treats addictions as well,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And
they're shutting it down, eh?
Yeah, it's a gong show.
Yeah, they're opening up Riverview again, and they're going to move the people who are at Burnaby.
Because it just kept shifting it back and forth.
Yeah.
When I went there for the first, I got moved to, they bailed me out of jail, some Burnaby team or something like that. They housed me at the St. Helens. And I could still use at this point because I wasn't really under their watch and eye until I was in the treatment center.
Right.
So I went right back to risking it all. If I catch a charge, I'm done. I'm going to the pen.
Yeah.
Right? And I couldn't really see past that. I was like, whatever. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. I actually even ended up ripping off one of the staff there that I ended up knowing later at the Burnaby Center. Really messed up how this one really came back at me. But I finally make it to the Burnaby Center. And it's just locked down right away. There's a phase 1. You walk in there, strip you of everything, and pretty much...
Because you're treated like a mental health case.
You're treated like a mental health case.
So you lose some rights because of it, right?
My restrictions are much different than almost anybody else there. Right. So I get moved into this room, and it's with this guy. His name was Eric. He's dead now. And he is completely head to toe from face to his toes, covered in tattoos. He's using openly in the room. And if I use and I fail a drug test, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Right to the pen. So I get moved right into this room, and of course, I'm solid, so I'm not going to rat the guy out. But I'm literally sitting on my hands for the first. I was in there probably about a month before I could move to the next phase, That was really trying for me. That was I actually had to give an effort to stay clean. So at this time, I'm trying to see my kid. I'm trying to do this.
Would you say you were giving it an honest effort at that time?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was the first time I gave
as best you could. Anyway.
As best I was capable.
It wasn't just a gaff to get out and stay out of jail. Okay.
Yeah. And I finally felt that first bit of relief when you didn't use. The
pink cloud.
The pink cloud. But we were medicated there for things, and I was already taking benzodiazepines at the time. I was actually on a small dose of Ativan as well as Xanax, so I wasn't completely sober. It's coming from a doctor, so it was monitored, but it was still something that was keeping me from complete abstinence, but I didn't know that at the time, right? And this treatment center, I ended up being there for almost 2 years, and there were some really good times to it. The staff there was really good. Made some pretty close friends. The handful that were, more along the not as affected by the mental, more
functional.
Functional.
Higher functioning is what
yes.
That's the politically correct term.
Yeah. And
meaning they don't need to be reminded to shower,
Yeah.
to eat.
Yeah.
Their social skills aren't.
still
Yeah.
one of my good friends. Still to this day, we talk every day. I met her there. Won't break her anonymity, but she's been one of my best friends for.
Is she doing well?
She's doing well. She's been clean
since then.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Well, no, not since then, but
for a while.
4 years now.
Okay.
She does really well. She's awesome. We've had a turbulent relationship because of my relapses and stuff we went through. There's some damage there, but the love is still there, right?
Cool.
We're close friends. But I started putting it together. I got clean, and I ended up getting a really good job because I'd always strung jobs together here and there. But I lucked my way into a really good cooking job near the start of my bit of clean time after the dope house when I moved out with the mother of my kid, and I was working on the Rocky Mountaineer rail tours, and that job as a cook.
Hear that, Brendan Bork? If you're listening to this, he used to work for your company. Anyway.
Yeah, and I kind of springboarded off of that on my resume, and I could get good restaurant jobs because of that.
So employability actually wasn't that hard if you applied yourself.
I could get there, but I could never hold it together for too long because I would usually start using it. Or I would start drinking a night at there, and then I remember there's times like going to the managers and being like, you got to give me some cash out of the safe. Like I would do anything. I would hit up bartenders and, because I'm drunk. Whatever, right? Or I'd be using people, women, whatever it was. So I ended up working at a yacht club, and great job. And right around this time, my CSO, I'm doing so well, I go down to court for a checkup. Because you got to do, you'll go in every 3 months to see the judge. And there's my lawyer and the judge, and he's like, I've got no information on you, which is a good thing. He's like, there's no complaints, there's no...
And it's because you actually hadn't done anything. You've been legit, right?
I've been legit.
You weren't just getting away with shit.
When he told me when he signed this thing, he's like, I've never signed a CSO like this for these kind of charges to somebody with your youth record. He's like, he's like, this is your one chance. You get caught jaywalking, you're going to the penitentiary. And that's like, there's no gray area.
And you have to keep on seeing that same judge too, right?
Same judge, yeah.
Right. So it's not an idle threat.
No.
For listeners, judges and crown prosecutors will threaten you with stupid shit. Sometimes like, oh, if you get caught again, blah, 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 if I ever see you. But it's easy to not see those judges again. But this thing, you have to see the same judge, right?
Because good lawyers know how to see the schedule for which judge is on deck. And, but they're getting good about hiding that now.
Yeah.
But anyways, I go in and he's like, I'm writing off your CSO. He's like, I see you look 100% different. Like, he's like, you probably put on like 40 pounds. Like, I was in good shape. I had nice clothes. I was, all looked good. Talk the game, whatever. And wrote it off. And probably about like a month after this, and I'm working that yacht club job as a cook. Me and the girl I was seeing there decided like let's relapse, let's get loaded.
Oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah, so romantic, right?
What'd you relapse on?
We were alcohol and crack cocaine.
Oh yeah.
It was gonna be classy. Nice. But I didn't even get to that point.
Oh.
I started drinking at the casino. It was right across the street from the treatment center. The Grand.
I know that one, yeah.
Yeah, and I started drinking there.
With her?
Nope, I can't get a hold of her. Her phone's dead.
Yeah. And
I know she's out using.
Right.
I know, and I'm like, really?
You didn't stick to the plan.
Yeah.
What a bunch of assholes you each are, right?
We usually meet at the same place where she used to pick up because he used to hang out with her, and, I'd sneak one here and there when I was on the CSO. But we make sure that we tried not to arouse suspicion. And I got lucky, and I think the staff just kind of turned a blind eye. They're like, we don't want to send this guy to jail. So, but anyways, I go outside of the casino for a cigarette, and I go into the valet parking, right in the valet parking. This guy comes up to me, and he's like, can I use your phone? lays some story on me. I'm like, whatever, yeah, sure. I got a brand new iPhone 4. I'm wearing nice clothes. I've got money at this point. I'm doing well. I'm making good money at the yacht club. I'm a couple months in this job. I remember handing him the phone and I light my cigarette. By the time I turn my head back to looking at him to see if he's dialing on the phone or what he's doing, and he's cranks me. He just winds up and he hits me directly along the eyebrow line, and he hits me hard. And he's a pretty big dude. He's probably about 6'2", 200, 210, big boy. And he just keeps hitting me, and he keeps hitting me, and he keeps hitting me. And I remember being down, kind of in a prone position with one arm holding me up, and like kind of down on, almost on my knees on my side. And he football punts me directly in the face multiple times, starts stomping my head into the ground, pulls out a knife. He goes to stab me with it. It goes through my hand, and he's plunking at me through my hand into my chest. And at this point, I'm kind of coming back into coherency. And he's looking at me, and he's got a very real look in his eyes, and he's like, "Give me your fucking money." And I'm pretty calm at this point. I'm so out of it, and I'm just like, "Have my money, man. Like, if you stop trying to stab me, I could give you the money a lot easier." Whatever. He gets my stuff. But I end up later on, long story short, I've been clean from opiates for a while now. Because that is the thing that will put me out the quickest, right? I can chip on other things. I could chip on the cocaine, but heroin, it's 24/7. But anyway, I end up at Burnaby General, and I tell them no opiates, nothing. They're stitching me up, and because I'm all, they have to stitch me around my eyebrows. They didn't give me any anesthetic, and they just cover me with like that gauze stuff and start stitching me up. I can't see, and they say, "Okay, we're gonna give you something," and I feel it go in. And I could feel that drop.
What was it, morphine?
It was morphine, and it was a pretty good dose. And I remember
getting done.
And I was done. My jaw's broken.
Yeah.
I remember the cops taking photos of me, and my jaw is starting to just thump, 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 thump. And they're sending me for CT scans, no concussion somehow. All these things, and the task force is trying to get me to talk, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, "Fuck you, I'm not giving no statements, I'm fucking solid," all this stupid shit. And then they give me the morphine, and they're like, "You need to sit down," and I'm freaking out at them. I'm like, I told you, I'm an addict. I told you I'm an addict. I even just got off methadone, all this stuff. And they're like, "Hey, you need to sit down because the guy who's coming in to do your jaw is going to be here in the next couple hours. And if you don't wait, you're going to have to come back and re-break your jaw." And I just remember being like, "Fuck you, I'm out of here." And I went right to the payphone, called the dealer. He was in the parking lot in 10 minutes. And I left. And never got the jaw wired, nothing. And within a couple months, I was kicked out of the treatment center as harm reduction. Because they just could not house me. Even after all the good things I had done, all the relationships I had built, I crumbled it in no time. I ripped somebody off. I got into multiple fights. I was completely, I could not be dealt with. I was a hazard to other people. And then right back to the streets. And, yeah.
And you and I have talked lots, and I know I'm getting the sense that this is where your sort of recovery yo-yo thing started, right? Like when you'd be in and out recovery, out of recovery, in recovery, out of recovery.
This is right after this time, because I didn't go directly to the streets.
Yeah.
They set me up. My counselor gave me a phone number.
Yeah.
Sent me to this house. I never went. I pretty much took the cab just to get a ride.
Right.
To a different part of town where I hadn't burned everybody off. So I get shipped out to Surrey to this recovery house. And I walk in, pretty much drop my bags off, and I leave. And I go to the Surrey Strip. And I'm down there, but this house will just keep taking me back in. But actually, the guy who's running it was a house called It's Up to You. And it was actually a pretty reputable...
Was that AJ?
No, it was a guy named Bert.
Don't know.
He I had this society for a long time. At this time, he was clean for quite a while. I think about 15 years. He had that house up for quite a while. It's actually now been, that society's actually been now sold to Chris Burwash, who's pretty affluent in the community. But anyways, I ended up floating through there a bunch of times, relapsing, bouncing around Surrey recovery houses. First time in meetings.
Right.
You know, I've been to a few here and there. But after this time, I go on a nasty run, and somehow I end up at Cordova Detox at Harbor Light, and I've been through there multiple times. And the guy that's pretty much runs it, the manager there, says, "Why don't you go to this treatment center I know that I cleaned up in?" It's like, I've been sober 16 years or 15 years at the time. And
I don't think they mind if you drop the name.
No, Don.
No, the name of the treatment.
The treatment center, the last door.
Right.
And it was a great experience.
You make any money off that? I want something. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
They got enough.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely, there's a lot of things to it, a lot of talk around it in that community. I find for a first exposure, legitimately trying to get clean and sober, and to learn the literature, and to meet people, and to be hounded, like I needed to be broken, it was absolutely what I needed at the time. And it didn't end well, but I have nothing negative to say about it except not the treatment center itself. It's a tough place, very tough. They work you very hard, but it's a life and death thing, and they take it seriously in their own way, which a lot of people could disagree with. For me, if you can make it in the places we've made it, it's just an inconvenience,
So, I mean, we could talk for hours about what happened after that, but I've heard the story. So, long story short, you didn't stay clean after that treatment center. No. In and out of recovery, in and out of recovery, up until now. What happened now? Like, what happened? So you've been clean 3 months.
Yeah.
What happened 3 months and 1 day ago, or whatever it was? Yeah.
In the last year and a half, because I made it to a treatment center again. I went to Maple Ridge Treatment Center, and I wanted to give it a legitimate shot.
That's like a year ago.
Yeah. About over a year ago. I'd say a year and a half, something like that. But I wanted to give it a legitimate shot. I was really suffering. It was not pretty. I just spent time in jail again. After last tour, I served a sentence for an armed robbery, and I got out, went right back to using, and ended up at MRTC after detox. And I had suffered, man. Like, circumstantially, it was getting really, really ugly, and I pretty much was giving up. Even, like, it was pretty much stringing 20s together. And at this point, I had switched from cocaine to crystal meth. And because I had done my first fix of that probably about a year previous to that, which led to the robberies, which led to some serious degradation. Serious degradation.
Yeah, because you were telling me you were homeless most of the time, and like in bushes with psychosis, thinking people are coming to get you out.
I ended up, before going to jail for the robbery, I was living in a tent with a handgun, doing robberies, putting the gun to my head every night, wanting to kill myself. And they kept taking me in over at the Surrey Sobering Center, which will take you in for about a day at a time. And the staff was really nice to me, as difficult as I could be, as dirty as I could be. They'd wash my clothes. They would pretty much nurse me enough that they could discharge me and I might not die from the exposure to the elements, because it's like wintertime. Anyways, I end up at MRTC. I'd been out for a while.
Maple Ridge Treatment Center.
Maple Ridge Treatment Center. I had just been through jail, here and that. Hadn't seen my kid in quite a while. And I get there, and I get a Facebook message. And I check it right, because they're going to take my phone, and my kid sends me a message saying, I know you did drugs. I know you did bad things and went to jail. I'm a boy now. I'm not calling you dad because born a girl, came out as transgender at this time.
How old?
9 at the time.
Okay.
Just fully support 100%.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. That
You're on a trajectory here.
And that was absolutely. I knew I was not a father. I knew that. I didn't really have the best example of one, but I knew what it felt like because what I went through when I was about 11 or 12 with my stepdad. That feeling of disconnection, that feeling of not being wanted or being lied to, all those things. I don't feel he was not on that intent. Yeah, neither was I, and I do know that at a core level. But I know that feeling. And that was pretty much the lowest I'd ever felt. That was the lowest I had ever felt.
Your kid saying, I don't want to call you dad anymore.
Yeah, that was absolutely, of all things I'd been through, that was the bottom. Next to that was them leaving. And at that point I said, I'm going to try to stay sober. Unfortunately, in the place I was in and, circumstance, my mindset, I was still pretty messed up. Still a lot of the jailhouse bullshit. Still a lot of that stuff that you're able to peddle around in treatment centers, especially ones with other guys that are on parole. And, I could escape to the gym. All these things. I had all those external things that could distract me from the tunnel vision I needed, which is make this right. Get your shit together so you can be a father that this kid deserves. And it was the first time I tried, and it was not easy, and I didn't stay clean. I bounced around a little bit more. The relapses were getting shorter and shorter, but the stakes were getting higher and higher with them. The crime was getting just as bad. But luckily, I got away with what I was doing. And then I ended up back at the recovery house I'm at now.
This time?
Yeah, this time.
Yeah.
I've still relapsed a few times, but what ended up happening was I put my life together, started hanging out with some good people again. They were clean and sober, going to meetings, and I was starting to see my kid again. It was starting to develop, and I met a woman
who was also in recovery.
And I cared for her deeply right away, absolutely. And she made it clear that it was our relationship could be based on the fact that I needed to stay sober. Unfortunately, I tested that and ended up losing her. But that, it didn't go in vain. I never wanted to get clean and sober until, all this happened with my kid. My kid ended up trying to commit suicide because, what he was going through as his identity and being teased at school and being different and starting to develop quicker than most. And all this compounded, and I started to try to put some strength into myself. And, I tried to start doing it for myself. I remember her keep telling me, do it for yourself, do it for yourself. And she really kind of held me together for a little while when I wasn't able to completely do it for myself. Ended up back in another treatment center for a month where I really, really tried really hard. Like, I went to Intervisions in Maple Ridge. and I got along with the staff and the counselors. The group of people I was in there with, I had a serious conflict with because I was so dead set. I was so scared of getting high at this point, and I could see what I had on the lines. I didn't completely know how to do it for myself yet. I was getting there, but I knew that I wanted to be sober more than anything because I knew at this point that I would have nothing, and I would have nothing accumulated, nothing going for me if I put substances in my body. If I put anything in me, doesn't matter what it is, from NyQuil to heroin, it's done. You know, like...
I know that one.
Yeah. So, I got out of there, went back to the recovery house, and since then I've relapsed one time. And I've been sober since.
For about 90 days or
90
3
days?
months.
Yeah.
What, do you have a date? Do you remember what your date was?
It's the 25th of...
September? No. August?
August, yeah. 25th of August.
August 25th, 2017.
Yeah. Because I had... I checked my Facebook and my kid was extremely mad with me again. The jig was up. I called the girl I was trying to...
reconcile with,
or at least, you know, like, and I don't blame her for moving on whatsoever. Like, realistically, like, why would she stay, right? I wasn't there for her, and I wasn't being there for my kid, and I really had to face my truth, you know, as hard as it was. And so I came back this time, and man, I was dead set on doing something different. I joined a step group. I went to meetings, like support groups, like crazy. I was going to at least 6 to 8 a week for the first month, living in the first stage recovery, which is pretty much like treatment. I wrote up into a step 4 and felt that was...
Step 4 is taking an inventory of your...
Yeah.
How does it go again?
A moral inventory of ourselves.
Yeah. Searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. You basically write down the shit that's fucked up in your head.
Yeah. And felt that was pretty good. Got into a step group.
Which is... Step groups, I found, the thing that is most beneficial about them is not so much that you're doing steps, it's that you have a support group of people like and that you can talk intimately with.
And I've gotten pretty close with a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
People have come, people have gone. Some of them are going to die. You know, I make the choice to use. I could die. That's the game. You know, that's how it goes. And since doing this, since giving my 100% effort, I feel completely different about where my life is going. I've kind of just gotten out of my own way. Before, I'd be super concerned with how much money I can make, buying this, buying that, pleasing everybody, having those in-depth conversations where I apologize for everything, all that. And I'm just like, time will tell, one day at a time, and just easy does it. You know, all those stupid slogans that you hate written on those walls.
They're true. They're
true, and I just kind of get out of my own way. I have a job that's... It's busy
You're
sometimes.
Working?
Yeah, I'm working.
What do you do?
It's weatherproofing or damp proofing on new construction. It's a small company. It's just me and the owner right now, and it's sporadic, and the weather kind of can pertain on some of what we can do. But I have faith in it. It will pick up. The guy likes me. It's not something in an industry that's going to go anywhere.
Especially in Vancouver.
And, you know, I told him that I would, you know, stand pat and be like, call me and I'll work. And we try to put out good work, the brand will grow. And then and he's made it clear he wants my part to grow. So I pretty much just did what I set out to do when I got sober. Got out of my own way, asked some questions, and started hanging out with good people, like the support group, yourself.
Fuck off.
Yeah, you know.
Quit trying to fuck me.
I know, right? Have that little moment.
So, wow, yes, it's quite the journey you have there. I mean, again, I'm used to these stories. This isn't new, but like people who are going to be listening are probably like, "Holy fuck!" Right?
Yeah.
So there's a few things I want to touch on. I want to try and make sure I get them. So you're working now. You have a safe place to stay. You're working on recovery as best you can. What's hard right now? What would you say the hardest part about being at this stage of recovery is getting clean? Because it's still fairly new. It's only 90 days, right?
Seeing where other people are at in their life. Social media can be real. Everything from your Tinder account to your Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Everything being shoved in your face, how good and they've got it, right?
Not feeling like I know I should. If I wasn't in that lifestyle, I would be light years ahead of where I am. And having to really kind of just take that in the chin and be like, you know what? You're alive. That's all you can ask for. I've got all my fingers and toes. Yes. I've got all my original teeth. I've never even had a cavity. I don't have any bloodborne diseases or STDs.
No HIV?
No HIV, nothing.
Hep C?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Never had anything.
Oh, wow.
And I've been extremely lucky. Like, I've been stabbed, this, that. Like, I've been in situations where I should have that. I get tested regularly, all that, right?
I had to explain to someone the other day, like, because I get STI tested all the time, too, because it's a habit I picked up from the old days, right?
Yeah.
And she said to me, "Oh, what do you mean? Do addicts don't regularly get tested?" I'm like, "Yes, we do. We're in contact with health services all the time, especially when you're in jail.
Yeah.
When you get pinched, do a blood test, right? So,
and it gets you out of your house.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go see a nurse.
Yeah. So basically, where you're at, where I was at when I first got out of the joint, is like you're alive.
Yeah.
Now it's up, and I had the same thing. Envy, always comparing myself to other people. I'd complain to my sponsor about, like, what the fuck? How come these people have all their shit? And he'd be like, because they didn't waste their life in prison. They didn't spend all their life. And so what I've come to realize is you have your life, you have your health. Now it's up to you to earn the life that you are envious of, right?
Exactly, right. And I could never see the trees through the forest on that. Yeah. It's hard sometimes dealing like within relationships, especially with people that aren't on our playing field, right? Like
haven't been where we've been, aren't trying to do what we're trying to do.
Like trying to explain to people, and like I'm not big on family dinners and this and that. Like the girl I was just seeing and trying to explain to her, like these family photos up on the wall and these dogwood certificates and Ann Getty's freaking baby portraits. I don't understand this. I don't understand Sunday dinners with the family. I don't understand. I don't get.
You don't have a life like that.
I don't have a life like that, and it's not that I didn't have a hand in that. I'm not alleviating responsibility, but circumstantially, the best I've ever done was in prison. That was where I
felt the safest.
Felt the safest was I could string together the most clean time, and really kind of level out. But the second I was given the choice,
off the rails.
Once you're on that final month, you're pretty much sitting on the planet waiting to go.
You can't sleep.
Yeah.
Then you have to take extra shits every day too. See your kid now?
I am now. It's starting to get better. I'm not forcing the issue. I'm just trying to be there. This will be one of the first Christmases in a while that I haven't been locked up or out there, where I'm gonna
out there meaning on the streets, fucked up on dope,
and gonna get him some stuff that he wants for Christmas, and I have the ability to do that, and really not outside of my basic needs. I don't look to myself like to get myself. I want that for him because that's what counts, and that's what I missed out on. That's what hurts the most, and that's what I want, and that's what he needs.
how's he doing? Because you said earlier in when we're talking about him being trans.
Yeah.
Want to elaborate on that?
Well,
I just got to piss again.
Yeah.
Just talk.
It came out. He came out around the time when I was in Maple Ridge Treatment Center. So, of course, my only question was really, like how can we help him? Because for me, I don't care about anything. I don't see him I don't care. I don't see him any differently. My first, my reaction. I remember talking to my friend and calling her up and saying, my exact words were, I always knew that I had the most beautiful daughter. I didn't know that I had the coolest son too. That was my legitimate reaction in my heart. It was tough because I felt like I had lost the daughter I was trying to repair a relationship with in some form. It's not wrong, it's not right, it's just the way I felt. But I just wanted to know how I could be more sensitive on his journey and how I could be more supportive. Unfortunately, as that situation came up, I didn't stay clean the whole time. It was really, really hard on me, and when he tried to commit suicide, I really was extremely hard on myself. And I didn't make it any better by using. But
Never does help.
Never does help.
Feels like it's going to,
Yeah.
But only it helps us, and it doesn't even help us.
Yeah. Well, my coping mechanisms for life are not, Dr. Phil would probably give me some shit.
Yeah. You got to learn new ones.
Yeah. But I just wanted to know how I could be there and just, I don't talk about it with him too much. I just let him know, and I've said to him multiple times, I don't care if you're purple, brown, green, boy, girl, fucking you want to identify as a fucking alien, as a fucking goddamn, you want to be a human fucking Honda Civic, go ahead. I don't care. I just want you to be happy and to feel safe and to feel respected and loved. And I demand that from anybody that's around. If you're not cool with my kid's choice, you're not cool with me. I don't post a bunch of stuff on Facebook about her. Is that? But
you're not using it to get attention either.
I don't use it to get attention.
Because I see people doing that now. Yeah. They use their kid to get attention. Right? Yeah.
I put up a frame supporting LGBTQ rights.
You know what I like about you is you're going through this as honestly and humanly as possible, but you don't even know the acronym properly.
Yeah.
And I think that's so neat because so many people I know are activists, right?
Yeah.
And they have all the lingo down, and they know all the new buzzwords, and a lot of them have gone to university and taken gender studies course, and you're just like the average guy doing the best you can, and you don't even know the acronym, but it doesn't even fucking matter.
It doesn't matter because it doesn't.
Who gives a
shit?
Who
gives a shit?
But what's funny is some people I know are going to listen to this, and they're going to get offended that you don't know the acronym.
And that's okay, but you know what? I get offended that, they get fucking offended. That's the
circle.
I'm offended that you're offended.
Absolutely.
Fuck you. How about I say something offensive then? And we can fucking be on.
Oh, you thought that was offensive, eh?
Yeah.
One thing you want to say, so a theme that permeates my life these days, and especially these interviews, it seems that it always gets brought up, I guess because it's such a big deal in Vancouver, it's the fentanyl stuff, right?
Oof.
You're the first guest I've had who's overdosed. Multiple times. You said 6?
Or 6 on the last run.
6 on the last run. So, what's that all like? Tell me just your experience with the fentanyl. If you can kind of narrow it down to that, just what are overdoses like, and also I think a lot of people, I know it, you know it. Again, we're talking to normies, right?
Yeah.
The mechanism behind overdosing, getting revived, and then going and scoring again.
Man, well, I'll start at the beginning. Because I'm kind of the old school heroin addict still. I started doing it about 15 years ago, in the joint. When it would get bad back on the streets when I was still heroin, I was doing close to an 8 ball a day. So when I relapsed and this fentanyl stuff had been around.
Like 2015 or something, wasn't it?
It was 2015, and I was just getting out of the joint again. I was just getting out of.
That was the last time you were
That was the last time I was in jail, and it was starting to come around, even out there, because I was in an institution not in the lower mainland, and I remember everybody talking about it.
Were they talking about it in a way where it's like, oh man, good dope, or
nope.
It was scary.
It was scary.
Okay.
It was very scary, and they're putting out a lot of notices. And nobody believed it, and then you'd hear, oh, it's up in Calgary now. Oh, it's coming down here, and everybody's like, ooh, W18 or this or that. And then it hit. And it turned Hastings into a very scary place overnight. Because I'm the kind, like, I've always felt safe down there. It's always had a very community vibe to it, to an extent. Like, it's, like, you do something.
You can't lend the guy $20 and he'll be back. But
but it's...
If you're getting beat up, he's got your back.
Yeah, it had some solidarity to it for that walk of life. It's been stripped of that, and that drug is extremely scary. I remember the first time I started dabbling in it because you couldn't find anything else. And obviously, at this point, I didn't want to die. I was trying to find sobriety through this, but not, obviously, and I would go use it Insight. And nobody had died at Insight at this point. And I had dropped, the first time I used it, I overdosed. And I used a very small amount.
Of what you thought was heroin?
No, I knew it was fentanyl.
Okay.
He did tell me, because I was very clear with him. I'm like, if this is fentanyl, tell me now. Because if I find out you're lying to me, I'm going to come looking for you. And I made it pretty clear, and he knew I wasn't lying. But anyways, dropped, revived, and at this point it was just, I guess it was a light overdose, I guess you could call it. They Narcan me, or Noxalone, come out of it. I'm a little out of it, but I'm not wired at this point yet.
So you're not instantly dope sick?
Not instantly dope sick. So I'm like, oof, that was kind of scary.
And you didn't need to go to the hospital?
Nope.
No.
I was at Insight, so I was okay. As the runs progress, because I got clean a little while after that one, but then next ones, it got worse and worse and worse, and the dope got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I honestly forgot about how many times it happened. But the last 3 were the scariest. I overdosed at Insight. I did a pretty good size hit because I was wired. And I even tried to take a Suboxone beforehand so I could
counteract it, yeah.
To get real high, right? But it doesn't really work.
Sorry to interrupt. They're not going to understand what we're talking about. Suboxone is a drug that's similar to methadone. You take it and it makes it so you don't crave opiates, and it also has what's called an antagonist in it. So you don't, if you take an opiate on top of it, ostensibly you won't feel it.
Yeah.
So what he was doing was he was taking Suboxone so he could do more fentanyl.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I even overdosed with what would be considered a pretty baseline dose of the Suboxone. And a couple of days after that, I recall that one I had to get taken to the hospital. They had to Noxalone me a few times, but
because it starts getting to the point where one naloxone shot won't do it, right?
Not even do it, and it's only good for half an hour, so they'll keep you there.
And you can die again.
They'll even put you on a drip.
Right.
And so I end up, I'm about to get a bed detox. This is the last time I used. I go and I score downtown, and I know I've got a detox appointment in about 3 hours. And so I use in the back alley behind Insight. So I can't even get to the, I'm so strong.
Just gotta get it in you.
Just gotta get it in me.
Yeah.
And I remember I make 2 shots. And it's this scary looking purple dope.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
And apparently, like, you gotta be really careful with this stuff. Really careful. I didn't really ask. I just wanted it in me. And so I go and I do one, and I remember, and I come to, and I'm being driven down Hastings in an ambulance. and I remember just kind of keep passing out, and then boom, they hit me again, and I pass out again, and they Narcan me three or four times, they said, and I get to the hospital, and I'm sick, and I'm really hurting, and they put an IV in me, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, no, I've got to go to detox. I've got to get out of this. And they're like, you just died? Like, you're not going anywhere. I ended up, like, ripping the IV out. I'm bleeding all over the place. I'm freaking out. And I go upstairs to what they have is a rapid access clinic. And I know the counselors up there. And I'm like, I could probably get these guys to help me get to detox. And they did. They get me down to detox.
Which detox?
Harbor Lake. And I get down there, and you'd think you'd be done, right? And I realize after I...
So you almost died?
I almost died. They said, we weren't going to give you another shot. We were not going to give you more. Like, we were ready to... Like, you were done. So I get to detox. I shower. I haven't even eaten yet. I remember the guy that got me in the door, Don M, looking at me, and he could feel my energy, and he looked at me. He's like, "Are you okay? Like, you gonna be all right? You're not doing it. Like, you're good?" And I knew what he was talking about, and he probably knew I was gonna lie to him.
You were scheming.
I was scheming, and I'm pretty sure he felt like I had dope on me. And I said, "No, I'm good." I remember putting my bin away. You know, I remember looking at my bed with the option of going to sleep, and I'm like, I got another shot on me. And because I'm like, I'll make that one last, you know, so I'm not so dope sick. I went to the bathroom, did it, and I woke up on the floor, or come to on the floor. And at this point, I've had so much Noxol in my system, I'm extremely sick. I'm throwing up blood, and apparently I was dead on the floor for.
Did they have to revive you?
Yeah. This is what got me clean. Was that I recall that I was under so long, I could recall the feeling of being under, which was new to me.
Because usually it's like a blackout. You just come to and like, oh, what the fuck happened? Right?
What it was I felt cold. It was black. I could feel like hands on me. Like I could kind of feel something. And I remember hearing them being like, "Come back to us," and they're hitting me and all this. But I remember withdrawing and pulling away and feeling cold and really scared. If that makes any sense. I don't know the best way to explain it. And I remember coming to and then getting brought back to the hospital, and they're looking at me like, "You idiot. Like, you fucking idiot." And that was the last time I used. And the way I made peace with that is that, you know, everything happens for a reason. And what I tried to take from that was that if I died with the way that my life was today, with the damage I've created in the life that I've left with my kid and this and that's what I'm going to find on the other side, is darkness and cold, dark, black place. And that's what I needed in my head to scare me, of being like, oh, like, that's what it's going to be.
Wow.
And that was right there, that was kind of enough for me. Because I was already done suffering. And that's when, like, people's words, and especially one person, saying, "You need to do this for yourself." And I didn't know what that meant. Because I just thought, you know, get clean long enough to put on a few pounds and the cops stop looking for you. That's what that meant to me. You know, repair some relationships enough that I can sneak using.
Yeah, because the goal, I remember those days, it's where you want the consequences of the using to go away.
Yeah.
You don't even necessarily want to use all the time in your mind, but you don't ever want to be completely abstinent either.
No, you still want the perks of using
without the problems.
That's the goal.
And
that's been the chase ever.
And the thing that normal people, quote unquote, don't understand about addiction is people who have addiction aren't able to have the drugs without the problems.
No.
It's like whatever the fuck is wrong with us, whether it's a spiritual illness, whether it's a disease, whether it's a hijacked reward system, whether it's a mental illness, whether it's a choice, whatever the fuck it is, we just are not able to use drugs properly.
No.
We're bad at using drugs.
We're Yeah.
We're failures at
And
using.
and as a normal person, I will see it in another addict.
Same.
A normal person will not see it in the addict until
they've been stung.
Until they've been hurt by it and they've burned them, or they show back up at that person's house and they're still drunk 3 days later, and you're like, what the hell?
And they pretend like nothing happened, and they have all the excuses, and they're able, no, it's your fault that I eat all that shit. Yeah,
but they don't, they're just like, what an asshole. It's like, that's addiction. That's addiction.
Fun times.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking for a while. Let's get close to wrapping it up here. It's been a good interview. Where's life going? What are your short-term goals? What are your dreams? What are your hopes?
I keep it pretty simple. For me, I just want a relationship with my family and the people that I love, and to them to feel safe and sleep at night that I'm not gonna fucking die. I want my kid. I just care about my son being happy with who he is and feeling validated by me being there, or by my partner. I want a relationship with him. If I could go back on anything, it would be not being there for him. Like, I've shot bad dope and died, but I regret not being there for him a lot more, right? That's the way I look at it. I just want a life that I feel like I deserve, because I'm not the things that I've done. Most addicts aren't. That's what gets really screwed up in the media. That's what gets really lost. I didn't help my cause any.
No, we're not good poster children. No. We're fucking ugly.
I can talk a big game, but when it comes down to it, man, I'm afraid of everyone and every fucking thing.
That's why we use.
That's why
we're terrified of everything.
We're terrified of life on life service.
It's funny. We're not terrified of, like, overdose. No. But we're terrified of responsibility.
The thing that I realized was I could, at a young age, I knew I could accept any consequences that came with it and just be like, part of the game. I could handle all that, but it finally reached a point where I was sick of suffering and having nothing, because that's how I understood do it for yourself, because I was so tired of hurting the people I loved. Finding out that my kid's crying himself to sleep on his birthday saying, why does daddy hate me? You think that'd be enough to stop using? No. But it hurt unbelievably, but it wasn't until I was done doing that to myself that I could really see things what they were and just be like, you know what? This isn't yesterday. It's not tomorrow yet. Just make the best you can out of this. And, don't be a dick. Don't say a bunch of shit that's really fucking mean. Don't do crime and bad shit. Don't pick up. Brush your teeth. Fucking do your laundry. Make your bed. Go to work. Everything will probably be alright if you just don't pick up. Don't use. And tear yourself down for the times that you didn't make good on that. Because if I live on yesterday's faults, on the tears that I made other people cry, if I live in that, you won't make it long. You're given one life, you're given one shot at it, and the jig's up for me. I will punch my ticket. I can't roll the dice anymore. And for the first time, I don't want to test that. Doesn't mean I don't sometimes think about using, but it just means I'm willing to put myself in the position to be helped and to get out of my own way. That's how I simplify it.
Fucking A. Well, I asked this question to everybody. For anyone who's listening, gotta remember, this is probably for average people who are just normal people. Anything you'd like them to know? Anything you want to say?
think, like you mean about addiction?
And no, open-ended. Anything you want to say?
Oof. Well, I don't want to talk about Trump. That was...
No, I don't want to talk about
I think, like, for what we've been talking about, and what I've learned through my life is that society makes things so complicated and so difficult for people struggling, and so hard, like, supposed to be, like, everybody's supposed to be so nice and endearing and this and that. And I don't think people actually realize that that's a very big falsehood. That, social media and stigma and all these things, like, people want to help or this or that, but they're like, I'm not going to give that homeless guy change. I'm not going to give him his next fix. But you get mad when people break into cars. You get mad that the system is overloaded. The system is broken, but people generally aren't. I think, for me, I just think that we could feed into helping each other more than we feed into the broken system. I don't know. I think we're too far past the point of salvaging, because the world is a bunch of cogs turning. You're not going to stop that. But we could try to help each other. Like, man, I don't have much money, but if somebody's begging for change, man, I'll give him some money or I'll buy him something. And if he uses it for dope, that's on him. He dies from that dope, that's on him. But I can't turn my blind eye because, Facebook posts this, that, or whatever the stigma is out there. People are people, and I think we need to help each other more. That's it.
Good closing thoughts. This has been... Thanks for being on my podcast, buddy.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Over and out.
So, this is an addendum to the episode, because I got talking to Billy, as we're going to call him, and he told me something that I'd never actually heard before, or I've never actually met anyone who's done it. He was on what I know as the prescription heroin program. So, tell me about that. How did you lead? I mean, in the episode we got your history, but how did you end up on the prescription heroin?
Well, through my struggles after I got out of prison, I started dealing drugs again, and I ended up in the downtown east side, but I had bounced in and out of there for, even when I was younger, and I had counselors down there, and I accessed service because that's where the only place back then, besides the Surrey Strip, you could get equipment for using was down there.
Rigs
pretty much,
stuff,
right? And I was so young looking, especially even then, I couldn't even go to a pharmacy. They wouldn't sell me insulin syringes. So I started using down there quite a bit. I was using Insight. I was on the methadone program already.
For the listeners, Insight is the infamous safe injection site. North America's first safe injection site.
Anyway. And I pretty much ended up, after a really bad run, I ended up down in the shelters, and, I was estranged from the girl I was seeing, and things were really, really bad. And my habit kept escalating, and I kept overdosing. And counselors as well as outreach workers pushed for me to get on the Naomi Project, which is the free heroin project, the safe that you would do, this little place off Dunlevy.
Well, what year was this?
This was 2007, 2006, 2007, somewhere in there.
When I was getting out of prison for robbing shit because of my heroin addiction, you were getting given heroin by the government. Fucking asshole, man. All right, go on. Let's hear.
So what happens is you'll go through a screening process. It took about, I'd say, the timeline for me is a little bit screwy because I was using so much. I was using cocaine at the time, but they told me that I would have to pretty much
stay. I would have to piss clean for that. Like you have to be. They told me how I could pass through the screening process, and it starts with the screening process, and you have to be pretty much a heroin addict, solely a heroin addict. During your time on it, they will test you and stuff like that, to make sure that
actually have heroin in your system or opiates.
Yeah. Well, you take it there. You go to a clinic and do it. But they want to make sure that you're, like a lot of people would try to just use it as a springboard just to get more and continue.
So, can you walk me through what getting a prescription fix of heroin looks like?
Well, you go through a doctor's assessment after your screening process.
Okay.
They screen you do 2 to 3 screening interviews. I heard of people even doing up to 4, and they ask you the same questions and they're trying to find contradictions. But anyways, you pass through that, and then you'll go through a doctor's exam. They'll look at your dose of methadone that you were on throughout the years. They'll look at your body weight. They'll look at your health. They'll do your blood work, and they kind of will assess you. And what I heard that they did with a lot of people is they lowball you. They lowball a dose. But anyways,
so that's to prevent, because people they don't want people going in there saying I do X amount so they can get higher. Yeah, because it's not meant to be a party, right? Yeah,
it's not meant to be a party. It's meant to get you
stabilized
as much as they can. Yeah. But you go in. I remember I was getting, I guess probably about the equivalent of, probably about 2 points 3 times a day.
2-point shots 3 times a day.
3 times.
Isn't it pure though? Wouldn't that? Or did you have a bad habit?
I had a really bad habit.
Oh, okay.
And they first tried to lowball me, and I said, no, I'll walk. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, and I'm going to stay off the coke, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do... Like, this is what I take, and I'm not bull... And then they looked at my methadone prescription before that, and I'd gotten up to like 160 notes.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Like big doses.
So, okay, you wake up in the morning... And you're gonna go get your shot. What does that look like?
Well, you go to this little
assuming you went to sleep, right?
Yeah. I was in the shelters down there, or I was staying here, I was staying there, but I was in the downtown east side. You have to have an address down there, and I would go and you go to this little place off Dunlevy at the time.
Was it a clinic?
It's a clinic, yeah. And you'd go in, and they would have the waiting room would probably have about 15 people, and you'd go into a room. And they would have everything. The shot was already set up, like you're not sitting.
The dopes
in the syringe, and pretty much there's just different booths set up, and it's not like you're sitting there cooking up the dope. Like it's ready to go.
Because it's liquid, right?
It's liquid, yeah. And there would be two staff, and then one person pretty much dealing with the lobby. And you go into the room and you do it. And then they'd usher you, like you had a time limit. Like it wasn't like it's not like you're gonna get in there and hang out. You do your shot, they offer coffee, they have food, all that sort of stuff, and then go about your day.
And you do that 3 times a day?
Yeah, there was, I was 10 a.m. and 10 a.m., 3 p.m., 5, or something like that, and then one closer to about 5 p.m. Maybe it was a little bit earlier on the second one.
But it's like business hours.
But it's like business hours because they closed at 6.
Right.
Like there was the last time they'd had somebody's 5:30. And then, that was your day.
Till tomorrow.
Yeah, until
So, what everyone's going to want to know, or me anyway, is the dope good?
Oh, it's unbelievable though. It's Swiss heroin. It's
Swiss.
It's pure. Yeah. It's pure stuff.
It's diacetylmorphine.
Yes, right? Exactly.
Which is the chemical.
That's what you're looking for. Yeah. That's what you're looking for. Extremely potent pins and needles. It would last a long time.
Ever done dope like that from the street?
No. So very, very rare. Like you would try to, the closest you could get to some of the feeling is getting like what echelons. But those are such a pain in the ass to even deal with.
What are they?
They're a morphine pill. I don't know like the actual chemical compound of the stuff, but it'll be a morphine pill, and they got these little beads in them, and they're just a pain in the ass, especially when you're a dope fiend on the street. Like going into a Tim Hortons bathroom and having to bust out these things, and you got to dry cook it, which means you put in the beads dry, crushed up, then you hit it with a lighter, then you dry cook it. It's this whole process that you can't really do when you're an active user down there. There's nowhere for you to really do that. But that's one of the pure ways of doing it. And then grays even down there, like morphine grays.
100 milligram morphine.
Yeah, those you, like, especially nowadays, but even back then, people would, they'd do what they call cold watering, or they dip it in cold water, pull stuff out of it, and put buff in it, right? So you can't trust anything down there.
Right. So how long did you do the prescription heroin for?
I was 3-4 months,
right.
But I landed back in jail. I ended up back in jail. Not for very long, but I was gone long enough
to finish the program.
Yeah,
or to get taken off the program.
Get taken off. Yeah.
So so you weren't even really on it that long. Looking back, with the benefit of hindsight and all that shit. Oh, what did you go to jail for?
I believe it was an assault. Assault and a theft or something.
Were you stealing something to support a habit?
Yeah.
What habit? Because that's something. Normal people listening to this would be like, "What were you on prescription heroin? Why do you?" So
it didn't help me. I'm a true addict. I'm not somebody that used because, well, I'm not somebody that can stay at this same dose and sit down there.
It'll always progress.
It will always progress
So
because I am straight out of the book addict.
Right.
One of the hardcore variety.
So, in your case, as far as it applies to you, you could say that the program didn't work.
No, because it was a means to have to not be sick. That was all it was for me. But really, if I had another way to get higher, I was gonna do it. And the problem that it entailed was now I'm down there, like all the time. I'm in the downtown east side,
and you have to go down there to pick the shit up.
And you got to go down there to do it, right?
So and you were living in shelters at the time.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing, because most people. No one knows about this prescription heroin program. I tell people about it and like, oh wow, and the news is starting to report on it. But what they hear is like, oh okay, like not the conservative people who say we shouldn't be giving it to them. I mean more the liberal type people who are like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. The theory goes that if we give you the heroin, you won't need to steal. You won't be going through debilitating withdrawals. So then you can get your life in order.
Yeah.
From the sounds of it, that did not happen in your case.
No, for my experience, it kept me alive, but it just really kind of was a springboard. It just propelled me to use more. Really, that's all it did for me.
I remember when I had a supply of heroin, like I was good as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do coke all the time.
Yeah.
And it was great because I didn't have the harsh Jones from the coke. I mean, still wanted to do more coke. But I wasn't all sketched out and fucked up with the jaw and all that shit, right?
That's exactly it. Because that's why I ended up going to jail, because I think I made it maybe like 3 weeks before I started using coke again.
So you didn't even keep to your word very long.
No.
Fucking scumbag.
No. Harsh scumbag, even on the free heroin program.
Right. So, yeah, I just wanted to get you back on here because it's like I've never actually met anyone who did it. Mm-hmm. I've met people who knew people who did it, but I've never actually met anyone who did it.
And it is rare.
And I think this is just my theory. I think one of the reasons I've never really met too many people is because most of them are probably still on the downtown east side.
Or
right?
dead.
Or dead, right?
The thing with it is you have to be deemed a lifer. You have to be deemed unsavable.
Like a write-off, basically.
You're a write-off.
Yeah.
And that was a big red flag for me. That's when I first started to try to get clean, was after that, when I got out of jail. Kid just on the way, all that sort of stuff. Or just born, actually. But the thing is like, you got to be street entrenched. You have to be tried everything. You have to be, and then
you have to have been on methadone.
You have to be on the methadone maintenance program, and not just like a little bit or like here and there. Like you had to have been like having a script, making your script, and even.
Still using,
right. Like, and still upping your dose.
From what I understand, you basically have to show that every other means of treatment has failed.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're offering it still. When I was getting clean this time again at Vancouver Detox, they offered it to me again, and they were pushy with it. After they offered me Suboxone, after they offered me methadone, I said no way. They asked me on probably. I'd say 4 days in a row, 3 times a day, they would come to my bed. The doctor would pull me in, and they would be like, "We're worried about you, man. Da, 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 da. Like, why don't you try the slow release morphine then? Why don't you try this? We'll put you on the hair." And I'm like, no. Like, no.
I mean, I can see why they're doing that, because so many people are dying, and it's like...
It makes sense to them.
Wow. I mean, I just wanted to get you back to talking about that part, but I'll just ask you this. As someone who's been through it, and is now clean for a while, you're getting your shit together.
Yeah.
Do you agree with them using it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
even though it didn't work in your case.
For me, it didn't work in my case, but I'm not everybody else. I don't know everybody else's journey.
Yeah.
I think for the burden on the system, the dangerous element of the streets, like especially to women, you know what they do, to the high risk behaviors they do.
Yeah, they don't really do armed robberies usually, or shoplifting.
I don't judge because you know, girls sell their ass, guys rob banks, and I've robbed a bank, so I can't really judge. But I look at like if you are intent on using drugs, you're gonna get it one way or another, and I see this as a way of at least minimizing the risk.
Mitigating harm.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
And clarifying that. This has been Billy, former prescription heroin ingester.